felt like this is an act of theft. Somebody poisoned this river, and I knew even then what the law says, which the waterways belong to the people. Everybody has a right to use them. Nobody can use them in a way that will diminish or injure their use and enjoyment by others. Santa Monica Bay belongs to the people of Los Angeles. Whether you're rich or poor, humble, noble, black, white, Hispanic, every child has a right to go down to that bay and go surfing without getting an earache or a stomach ache, to throw in a hook and bring out, or go diving for abalone, or to bring out a fish and bring it home and feed it to their family with the security that they're not poisoning somebody. But those rights have been taken away from the people of this state and the city, and that's an act of theft. And I knew from that moment when I was 12 years old that I wanted to do something in my life that would catch the criminals, the thieves who were stealing this, and stop them from doing it. And I went to work for a group of fishermen, the Hudson River Fishermen's Association, in 1984 as their first attorney. The group started in '66, and it was started by a blue-collar coalition of commercial and recreational fishermen who mobilized to reclaim the river from its polluters. And they had tried to get the government to do its job and stop the pollution, but the government agencies gave them the bum's rush. And they recognized in 1966 that if they were going to reclaim the river for themselves, they needed to confront the polluters directly. And they dug up an ancient navigational statute, the 1888 Rivers and Harbors Act, an 80-year-old law that nobody had ever enforced. And it said it was illegal to pollute any waterway in the United States. You had to pay a big penalty if you got caught, but there was a bounty provision that said that anybody who turned the polluter got to keep half the fine. And they started rounding up cases, going after every polluter on the Hudson. They collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties and bounties. They used the money to build a boat. They began patrolling the river. They hired me using bounty money as their first full-time attorney in 1984, and we brought over 500 cases to clean up the river. And today, as a result of our work, the Hudson is the richest waterway in the North Atlantic. It produces more pounds. More pounds of fish per acre and more biomass per gallon than any other waterway in the Atlantic. And the miraculous resurrection of the Hudson has inspired these river keepers that you see tonight. I think there are 20 water keepers here, river keepers, sound keepers, bay keepers. Today we had our board meeting, and there are now, and we approved two new keepers today, I think in Tanzania and one of them in Ghana. And that brings the number of water keepers we now have to 342 in 42 countries. Each one has a patrol boat. Each one is protecting the waterways they're going after the polluters, and they're protecting it for their local communities. And that's what this group is about. It's about recognizing the connection between the environment and communities, and recognizing that our primary obligation as a generation, as a civilization, and a nation is to provide to our children communities that give them the same opportunities for dignity and enrichment and prosperity and good health as the communities that our parents gave us. And if we want to do that, we have to start by protecting the infrastructure of our communities, the air, the water, the wildlife, the fisheries, the public lands, the shared resources, those assets that cannot be reduced to private property ownership, but by their nature are part of the commons, the community, the things that we all own in common. The water, the fisheries, the air we breathe. And, today we are those things. We have an administration in this country that is trying to take those things away from us. Steve Fleishley, who's the former president of our organization, and former Santa Monica Bay keeper, is here tonight. And he was telling me that he just filed his 51st case against the Trump administration is 51 cases in which Donald Trump is the plaintiff. And, you know, I don't have anything against Donald Trump per se. I got a lot of criticism because when he first got elected, before he did anything, I went on Don Lemon on CNN, and Don Lemon wanted me to criticize him and compare him to President Kennedy. And I said to him, he could be the best president in the world that we've ever seen, because he comes into his office less burdened by ideology or obligation than any president that we've ever had. So I wasn't going to criticize a man who just took the job, but he's had a year in office, and he's the worst president we've ever had. And, you know, I never talk about my family. 34 years giving talks, you know, to the Waterkeepers and to environmental groups. I've never spoken about my family. But this year is the 50th anniversary of my father's death on June 5th in Los Angeles. It's the 100th anniversary in November of President Kennedy's birth. And, you know, I was thinking of what to say here, but I couldn't really think of what to say because I was laughing so much at the comedians. They were so good, right? They were fantastic. I remembered something. When I was a little boy, I went to Europe with my father. We went, I think it was the 25th anniversary, it was in 1964, of the D-Day invasion, and we went to Normandy, but then we went to Germany and France and England and Greece and Italy. We went to Poland, which was a communist country. The Polish government didn't want us there. They told us not to come, but we went anyway, and they gave a news blackout. They didn't want us to meet any Poles to know we were there. In fact, the first day we went to an orphanage to bring presents to the orphan, and the communist government removed all the orphans from the orphanage. It was just an empty building. They wanted nobody to know we were in the country. We went to church at the university, at the Cathedral of Krakow. When we came out, there were 400,000 people waiting for us in the square. They lifted up our car. They were carrying, I have no idea where they got them, little American flags. And they sang Stolat, which is a Polish song that they had not sung during the entire communist era. And it was a song that they sung to the great heroes of Poland and to their great leaders and kings. And they sung it to my father and to our family. And when we went to France, and which never had a good relationship with America, the same thing happened. Hundreds of thousands of people were in the street with little American flags. And Greece and Italy. And, you know, my uncle, President Kennedy, used to say, there are many people in Africa and Asia, many children who are named Jefferson and Washington. There are none named Lenin or Marx. And when he died, when he had gone to Germany 3 years before, 750,000 people had met him when he did his Ich bin ein Berliner speech. It was a larger crowd than any crowd that had ever gone out to meet Hitler. And he wasn't using the alchemies of demagoguery. He was appealing to their optimism. He was appealing to their sense of community, to the best parts of the German people. And when I saw those crowds when I was a little boy, I understood that these were people that were looking for American leadership, because they knew at that point that America knew the difference between leadership and bullying. And they were hungry for our moral authority. They were looking to us for our values, and they loved our country. And, you know, today a Pew poll came out about 6 weeks ago that showed that we are by far regarded as the most loathed and dangerous country in the world. Much more dangerous. 80% of the people in the world say, when they ask, what's the most dangerous country? They don't say North Korea. They don't say Pakistan. They say the United States. When my uncle died, there were streets named after him, and hospitals, and libraries, and buildings in every state capital in the world, including Russia. During his funeral, the Russians, for the first time, dropped all of the blocking of American media that they had done. There was 135 countries that issued commemorative stamps. And when I go, even today, to Peru or Chile, I go into huts or Navajo reservations in Arizona or houses in West Virginia, and see my uncle's picture and my father's picture, and not just in our country, in countries all over the world. My uncle never sent a single combat troop to battle abroad. He was so proud of that because the generals asked him to send it to Laos and Vietnam and Berlin and Cuba, and he refused. And he stood up to them. He said, that's not what America is. He wanted it. The face of America abroad would be a Peace Corps volunteer, not a soldier. And there's not going to be any children anywhere in the world named Donald Trump. And, you know, that love for our country provided security to our country. And it provided economic security and national security. And it was a good thing. Now, I love what some of these comedians were saying about the insanity of this. And, you know, the thing that my uncle recognized in my father, and it's all tied into the oil industry and to these big polluters that are hurting our country so badly, is that we cannot have an empire abroad and a democracy at home. The two things are incompatible. And we have to understand that. And we have to understand that the way that we use resources is linked to what our foreign policy is. And that oil, our dependence on carbon, has driven this foreign policy that is an imperialistic foreign policy, and it's costing our country in so many ways we don't even understand. We know it gives us $335 billion of healthcare costs every year from breathing the ozone and particulates and the other stuff from oil and coal. And you know, it's an industry now that is on its last legs. Of the 50 top coal companies in America are all in bankruptcy. The biggest three, Consol, Arch, and Peabody, have lost 80% of their value in the last 2 years. Why is that? Because the price of building a solar power plant is now $1 billion a gigawatt. The price of building a coal-burning power plant is $5 billion a gigawatt. There will never be a coal-burning power plant built again. And the cost of driving an electric car is 2.7 cents a mile over the life of that car. The cost of an internal combustion engine is about 12 cents. And that's why General Motors just said they were going to stop building internal combustion engines, and Volvo. Every major car company is now turning electric. The oil industry, the carbon industry are panicked. The only way that they can maintain market share is by controlling the government and continuing these absurd subsidies. They get $5 trillion in subsidies a year, according to the World Bank globally. In this country, we give them $1.2 trillion in subsidies. And they have rewritten the laws to make it almost the Koch brothers, which own this government. They put almost $1 billion in the election. They've made it, they've got a Congress that has rewritten the laws that govern energy in this country to reward the dirtiest, filthiest, most poisonous, most destructive fuels from hell, rather than the cheap, clean, green, wholesome, and patriotic fuels from heaven, wind and solar. And the way they do that, they have made it almost impossible to build an electric power line in this country. And they made it very easier to build a pipeline and to put solar panels on your roof. So over the past 12 years, they've built 16,000 miles of pipeline and only 600 miles of power line. And power line is what we need for wind and solar. Oh, that's how they're maintaining control. And, you know, the only way we can fight them right now, because Congress is paralyzed, is on the grassroots level. And we are doing that, and we're doing it successfully, and we're using the courts, and we're staying organized. And that's what you have to do to fight an oligarchy, you know, a plutocracy, which is where we're headed, which is where we already have arrived. And the only way to fight that is grassroots, and we do that better than anybody. We're the #1 grassroots water protection group in the world. And we're fighting for every inch of river, we're fighting for every square cubic foot of lake, and for your shorelines up and down the coast here. And, you know, and we're going to keep fighting those battles. We get, for every dollar you give us, we get $943 worth of value. And I'll tell you just one story of how that worked. A few years ago, Caltrans was discharging onto the surfing beaches from all those coastal highways, like the PCH, and all the toxics from the driving fluids and all the other the impervious surfaces were coming down onto the beaches and making the surfers and bathers sick. And we sued them. We won $1 billion lawsuit and forced them to clean up those storm discharges. And so for a small amount of money, we got a big bang. We got a big cleanup bang, and that's what we're doing. That's why we need your help, and that's why it's important for you to support our efforts. I didn't mean to bring you down after this wonderful night, but thank you all very much.
Robert Kennedy Jr., ladies and gentlemen.